steadily grows. The kits I make may one day break, and dust might fill my nose. But I still build, and I always will. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So I bid farewell to Hobbytown. I never more will see. But paint and glue are what I do, so it's eBay stores for me. Oh, I could have gotten all their stock, but I'm not one of those. They were almost free, but that's not me. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So come on, ye old glue troopers who can still build model kits. The kits are new, some need no glue, and others'll give you fits. When the paint's not dry, then you must try to leave it as it sits. If the kit is old, it can raise your soul when you have finished it. So let's bid farewell to the days of yore we never more will see. Grab your glue and get right back to that vintage old styrene. Oh, a Miss Aurora and monogram and the old kits that we chose. But we still build, and we always will. We're all idiots, I suppose. I often do these late night builds on some old kit I've found, and my mind goes back to the shelves and stacks of a store that's not around. It was not far from my neighborhood. I just liked to look around, or I'd forget the glue and would then have to go back to Hobbytown. I remember many years ago the first kit that I chose. Then every day a new display as my stash steadily grows. The kits I make may one day break, and dust might fill my nose. But I still build, and I always will. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So I bid farewell to Hobbytown. I never more will see. But paint and glue are what I do, so it's eBay stores for me. Oh, I could have gotten all their stock, but I'm not one of those. They were almost free, but that's not me. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So come on, ye old glue troopers who can still build model kits. The kits are new, some need no glue, and others'll give you fits. When the paint's not dry, then you must try to leave it as it sits. If the kit is old, it can raise your soul when you have finished it. So let's bid farewell to the days of yore we never more will see. Grab your glue and get right back to that vintage old styrene. Oh, a Miss Aurora and monogram and the old kits that we chose. But we still build, and we always will. We're all idiots, I suppose. I often do these late night builds on some old kit I've found, and my mind goes back to the shelves and stacks of a store that's not around. It was not far from my neighborhood. I just liked to look around, or I'd forget the glue and would then have to go back to Hobbytown. I remember many years ago the first kit that I chose. Then every day a new display as my stash steadily grows. The kits I make may one day break, and dust might fill my nose. But I still build, and I always will. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So I bid farewell to Hobbytown. I never more will see. But paint and glue are what I do, so it's eBay stores for me. Oh, I could have gotten all their stock, but I'm not one of those. They were almost free, but that's not me. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So come on, ye old glue troopers who can still build model kits. The kits are new, some need no glue, and others'll give you fits. When the paint's not dry, then you must try to leave it as it sits. If the kit is old, it can raise your soul when you have finished it. So let's bid farewell to the days of yore we never more will see. Grab your glue and get right back to that vintage old styrene. Oh, a Miss Aurora and monogram and the old kits that we chose. But we still build, and we always will. We're all idiots, I suppose. I often do these late night builds on some old kit I've found, and my mind goes back to the shelves and stacks of a store that's not around. It was not far from my neighborhood. I just liked to look around, or I'd forget the glue and would then have to go back to Hobbytown. I remember many years ago the first kit that I chose. Then every day a new display as my stash steadily grows. The kits I make may one day break, and dust might fill my nose. But I still build, and I always will. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So I bid farewell to Hobbytown. I never more will see. But paint and glue are what I do, so it's eBay stores for me. Oh, I could have gotten all their stock, but I'm not one of those. They were almost free, but that's not me. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So come on, ye old glue troopers who can still build model kits. The kits are new, some need no glue, and others'll give you fits. When the paint's not dry, then you must try to leave it as it sits. If the kit is old, it can raise your soul when you have finished it. So let's bid farewell to the days of yore we never more will see. Grab your glue and get right back to that vintage old styrene.
The microphone is now hot.
Oh, Miss Earl.
All right, it's hey, I even got it on time. Well, miracles never cease. Well, guys, I have a
for a pilot. That's amazing.
yeah. You remember,
Within 15 minutes.
never overestimate pilots. We use checklists, and there's a reason why. Okay, real quick, guys. Max and Max's models here. If you can hear me, somebody give me a 5x5 or a 3x3. Just get a real quick voice check, and we got a whole bunch of stuff to do. Almost didn't have a live stream tonight. Had some last minute things pop up, but I mean, literally got them taken care of. I might have to let you guys entertain them for a while if I get called to render various services while we're doing the show. So, we're taking care of sick family here. Great.
Neighborhood patrol?
Yeah, something like that. I ran around the house looking for this, and it's right on the desk in front of me. I had to run to the pharmacy.
Okay. People are getting your signal through.
Good. It says 3x3, 5x5. I'll speak up. I realized I had to run to the pharmacy to get a prescription, and I realized that's the first time I've seen anybody besides my wife in 2 weeks. I was like, there are other people around here. I hope I haven't forgotten my social graces, and as Ken can attest, they weren't that great to begin with.
Varying degrees.
Anyway, but I did manage to cobble a few things together, and let me just, oops, I have to turn the volume down on the iPad, or we get the feedback. So guys, big treat. I finally figured out how to do a three-person merge phone call. So I have both Ken and Steve's Model Mania. And Ken, we got to come up with a name for you for your like YouTube handle or something. But we have Steve and Steve's Model Mania.
Let the crowd do that. They're good at that. How about the Terminal Man? Terminal Man? Where'd you get that? Did you ever see the movie?
I was thinking, you guys have seen that movie, was it Super Tough or something like that? I was thinking something like Uber Nerd. but anyway, yeah.
Creative.
It's like Untermenschen. I am the Uber Nerd. Ja, das ist gut. So anyway, few things happen.
Maverick.
Good going, Mav. Yeah, you know, maybe I learned it. Was that commercial? Was that Truck Masters? So
Mad Max, Crazy Ken, and Stupendous Steve. Okay.
Well, Steve's already got one. It's Max's Models and Steve Model Mania, and Ken's. How about Ken's Pieces Parts? You know what? We'll go with Ken's Pieces Parts because I've been to Ken's house. All of his models are in pieces parts, which is actually a good thing to kick off on. I've been working on the Power Wagon a little bit, the Patton's Power Wagon, and I am making the furniture for it. And when you need
you're not going to let me defend myself, huh?
When have I ever? What do you think this is, a court of law? You get to present a competent defense. If I ever become a judge, they're going to paint a big kangaroo on the door of my courtroom. And trust me, it's not for the land down under. But anywho, so Ken the Barbarian. How about Barbie and Ken? Oh, Ken's least favorite reference.
So bad in 6th grade for that.
I'll bet you did. Ken went through school named Ken right when the Ken doll came out. Oh my God! It's a good thing Ricky. It's a good thing Ricky was your buddy.
There was a girl in my class named Barbara. Yeah.
Oh my God!
It was bad.
Ken and Barbie. But
and when you got your first car, did they call it the Country Camper?
Oh, we forgot about that. Was it Barbie's little red Corvette? Tell me, Ken, did Barbie let you drive the Corvette? Okay, you know what? We ripped on Ken enough.
Way off the topic.
Yeah. So anyway, I was working on the Pat's Power Wagon, and I'm putting together a ladder and a podium and some other stuff for it. So a couple of you guys had some great ideas that I'm running with, and but one of the things that drives me up the wall is when you get something that's off scale, but it's just what you need, but it's a little bit off scale. I found a couple of pre-made ladders that would have been perfect if they scaled out just a little different. And it irks you because you're like, and I'm sure you've all had this happen, where you've been in your parts bin, you found exactly what you need for it, just what you're looking for, but it's a tire, a bomb, a hood, a grill. It's just a little bit off scale, a little bit the wrong size. And so you're like, and I'm just curious how you guys handle that. Sometimes I was like, you know what? It's just too perfect. I'm going to force the issue. No one will notice. And other times use it as a pattern to make the part. And usually I just wind up throwing it back in the bin and just going, so close. As Max Smart would say, missed it by that much. But
just put a magnifier in front of it when it's finished.
There you go. Well, one of the things is, one of the glue troopers sent me those generals and field marshals of the war, but they're the wrong scale. And somebody said, well, just, put them way down at the far end of the thing and use a little forced perspective. And I just might do that, but somebody
says, does that make Max Barbie?
No,
That's way
Barbara
out
was
there.
Barbie. Some people are
Or
reaching a little bit.
Skipper.
Nah.
Oh, Skipper.
Yeah.
Skipper's good.
Well, they do call me Skipper at work. Excuse me, Skipper. Why, yes. Hey, you're not the Skipper I was looking for. Not my problem.
That works on a few different levels, doesn't it? I am not Gilligan. Excuse me.
Oh, but I disagree. Come on, if anybody around here's a
Okay.
Skipper.
No, I'm going to be the professor.
Actually, that's not unfair. That I could go with that.
All right, we'll go with that.
Well, Steve, that makes you Gilligan. Sorry.
Mr. Howell was taken.
You see, but to be Mr. Howell, you have to have lots and lots of money, which none of us do. Oh, by the way, Steve, I meant to ask you. We're going to be talking about what I'd mentioned earlier, about Exner and Harley, Earl, and I only had a brief moment to bring up that other fellow you talked about, and I didn't have a chance to get any information on him, but we're going to talk about it tonight. But tonight we're going to be talking about tanks. We're going to be talking about styling of cars. We're going to be talking about ugly aircraft. And thanks to Ed Nash, I stole some slides from his show. My God, he came up with some whoppers. If you guys haven't seen Ed Nash's channel, and I'm not trying to, I've never met him or spoken to him or anything. He's just a YouTube channel I watch. There's Rex's Hangar and Ed Nash's military aircraft. These two guys come up with some really obscure stuff. They kind of do for airplanes what I do for models, and it's really a lot of fun. But anyway, we're going to be talking about some butt ugly airplanes, and the reason it ties into kit models is I think there are some real modeling opportunities here, which gets to the thing I wanted to get to. We're also going to be talking about Kitbashing X-planes, because I had a little chat with Mike Machat. Boy, that could be a second night show, a chat with Mike Machat. Mike, you out there? I have to run that by him, because our last little collaboration was very popular with the the aerospace box artists. But anyway, there are some really ugly airplanes and really ugly cars out there, and I think model builders would like an opportunity to do something different. I think there's a marketing opportunity. And you heard me say before that some of these concept cars would have sold as kits, even though they were never manufactured as cars, just because they're so wild. With airplanes, I think it's the same thing, including some of the, and Anagram does make some of them, but I think really ugly airplanes would be, I think it would be a pretty popular subject. I mean, we've all built so many sleek jets and World War II fighters that after a while you sort of get pretty plane burnout. And so I was going to ask you, Steve, of the butt ugliest cars you can think of, and they make models of the Edsel, so that doesn't count.
Edsels were ugly. My dad had one.
Oh, that's right. I forgot your dad had an Edsel.
Yeah, he had an Edsel Ranger.
And but what do you think would have been what do you guys think would have been a good kit model car to make that was like, and it could be a concept car, but it was just like, just so hideous you couldn't not buy it?
The most hideous model kit car that I've ever seen is a model from Japan, and it's of a car that's in one of these superhero Japanese shows.
Uh-huh.
And they took a 57 Imperial and made it into the ugliest car I've ever seen in my entire life, and that's the car that they ride around in the show.
I think I know the one you're talking about. When I did one of Aoshima or one of them, I stumbled onto that. It was some kind of spy police show or something like that.
Yep, and it is the ugliest car I've ever seen in my life. And they have two kits of it. They have one in like 43rd scale and one in 24th scale.
And the 1957 Imperial didn't need that much help.
Hey, you're not gonna in the garage.
I'm just kidding. I thought I'd get a rise out of you. Actually, that's a sweet looking ride.
Aztec. Yeah, that would qualify. Somebody suggested Brian K. Day suggested that one.
As which one?
I have no idea what these look like.
I'm getting a picture of a 57 right now, so just to...
What, a 57 Dodge?
No, Imperial.
Aztec. What year? What year, Brian?
Image. Let me just run over to that real quick. And...
They're still going on about you the skipper and and Marianne and stuff.
You give these guys a bone. There's your 57 Imperial.
The question is, who would be Marianne and Ginger? I didn't want to go there. That but
nobody in this crowd. But there's your 57 Imperial.
It's 57. That's a 58.
That's a 58? Did I type it in wrong, or I just grabbed the wrong picture?
But they look the same. The grill's different. That's the only major difference. That is scary.
Well, they mislabeled it. Yeah, they labeled it as a 57.
Well, if you got a 57, you know the difference between 57 and 58. That is true. I hadn't thought about that.
Okay, files. Save as.
A lot of scary things I know.
Well, you've been... Oh,
the Corvair? That wasn't ugly. My uncle had one. I thought it was kind of a cool-looking car.
Well, you know, there's what we... You know, Ken, I thought my hair was cool-looking in 77. It was a bloody pompadour.
Well, that's 61 Valiant.
Let me do that.
I don't know what one of those is.
That, it says, is the 57.
There's a 57. Okay. Apparently somebody thinks my voice is a little bit too low. Am I talking too soft?
Well, let me put this a little closer to the microphone. I have such a sophisticated operation here. All right, that might help out a little bit.
You have one of those? Yeah. On purpose?
Oh, God. And it is on. Fight's on. No,
that's a pretty classy car. I was just kidding about it, but that's not bad. You don't have many of them passing you on the highway.
Nah.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I like the little circles on the taillights. That's pretty cool.
Well, Steve, I think you were saying, because I know that, you know, my generation thinks of a hot rod. Things like the '67 GTO come to mind and stuff like that, and Firebird. But as you were saying earlier, that's just a Tempest with a big, you know, and who was it? DeLorean got around the rules, so to speak, and by shoving, you know, the biggest engine he could into what back then was a mid-sized car. Now it's an icon. There's probably a dozen models of every version of the GTO. I mean, this is how genius was born.
It was an option package. That's how we got around corporate GM, because they had a restriction on how big an engine you could put in the car. And they didn't want big engines in the mid-sized cars. So technically, the car didn't come with that engine, but you could get it as an option. That's one way of doing it.
Well, I don't know. When Iacocca, you know, came up with the Mustang, there seems to be some debate that he knew it would be a pocket sports car, and others like, no, he thought it was a grocery getter. And depending on whose material you read. But
well, Carroll Shelby had the best description of the Mustang.
Uh-huh.
He said it was a secretary's car. I think I remember that.
If you're the secretary of Coolsville.
But where they were really clever in the Mustang was you could get a bazillion different options for the car. I mean, you could make it just about any way you wanted it, and that was what Ford cashed in big time, because people would just put all kinds of different options in, and everything was pretty much available.
Which one was it? AMT got their start just making option packages for kit models that were already, you know, they made the customizing kits for the little promo cars.
Well, no, they made they were the first ones that really made 3-in-1 kits.
Okay.
Where you could build it stock, you could build it custom, or you could build it hot rod.
Yeah.
And they put a lot of parts in the box.
Right.
And so that was what kind of put them on the map.
But there was someone that got started just making the customizing of kits for the promos. And I don't know if it was MPC or which one, or Revell, or I forget who it was, but that was kind of like really, they sold so well that they started making the whole car.
Well, Revell did that with parts packs.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of, the parts packs. I mean, we're going back to the 50s.
You know, it was very successful. I mean, if you bought 1 or 2 parts packs or 3 parts packs, you could make maybe 2 cars. And if you go on eBay, I mean, they're on there all over the place. And they had, you know, the Moon Eyes Dragster that Atlantis has repopped, that started out as a parts pack car.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I gotta ask something here quick.
Yeah, go.
What's the story behind this car? What made you decide you had to buy one of those? what made me decide? Because it was for sale at the gas station in town that I lived in. And my wife said, "Did you see that car at the gas station?" And I said, "Yeah." And 2 days later, it showed up as for sale. And I went down and looked at it and found out it was owned by a guy I knew in town. And he had taken it in trade from someone who owed him a lot of money's wife, the guy passed away. So he was going to restore the car, and he said, "I don't have time to do it. I got a kid in college and this and that," and I bought it from him. That was how I got it.
That thing's just got mafia staff car written all over it.
Yeah, well, mine's not black, so what color is yours? It's turquoise with a white roof.
Let's just say it was 1960 and 2 or 3 of those pulled up in my front lawn or front drive. First thing I'd do is ask the wife, "Honey, did we pay the bookie like we were supposed to?" But
how long have you had it? Oh, God, probably 15, 18 years. Wow.
Now,
that's amazing.
Who was the stylist?
It's in my garage, and it's sort of undergone a full restoration, and I'm waiting for a couple of parts to come back so I could put it all back together, and it's the ultimate model kit.
Yeah.
That is true.
So
don't need glue.
It is. You don't. Yeah, you need wrenches and a lot of parts in American Imperial units.
And I guarantee a lot of patience and a very patient wife.
I guarantee you, nothing on that car is measured in millimeters. No,
and try getting parts for it.
Oh God, I can imagine. How many do you figure they made? Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to find you a kit model of it then.
They only made the 59, and it's only in 2-door, and it's an AMT kit, which I have.
Okay. Well, what's the
either as a convertible or a hardtop?
Who was the designer at Chrysler? Because I know this still has the tail fins, very much a 50s car.
That was Exner.
That's an Exner design.
Yep.
Now okay, tell you what, since we're on that, let's go ahead and bring up, we'll just jump on into this subject.
The mob used caddies.
Okay. Oops.
Yeah, they had bigger trunks. That's true.
Hey, you can put all the stiffs back there.
We had a kid in high school, and you know how they would write things in the yearbook?
You were most likely to wash up on the Jersey Shore?
No. This was in New York, and he was voted most likely to be found in the trunk of a Cadillac.
Did you ever see the movie with Kelsey Grammer down Periscope? With Kelsey Grammer,
yeah, I remember that show. Yeah.
But the guy from New York who's always arguing with the athlete on the crew he says he goes, "You've never been in a car like this." They have a bet on. He goes, "I forgot to make my bookie, and my brother-in-law tossed me in the trunk of his cab. Apparently his bookie drove one of those." And he goes, "I got tossed in the trunk and taken for the ride. Even the trunk had cut pile carpeting." So anyway. On the left, we have the famous Harley Earl, and on the right, we have Virgil Exner, who probably, I would say, amongst 2 of the most influential car stylists in history.
Harley Earl's legs.
What?
We have Harley Earl's legs.
I have Harley Earl's legs?
There we go.
Well, it
takes
a few seconds for the images to catch up.
Yeah. So anyway, well, actually, Steve, this is more of your forte, so I'm going to let you give the quick bio on both of them.
Well, Harley Earl's family, they owned a styling studio in Los Angeles. And what they did was they would take high-end cars, and they would repaint them, and they do some custom bodies, and they do nice interiors, nicer than what came from the factory, and they did stuff for movie stars, and they became noticed by General Motors. And since Harley Earl was the one who sort of came up with most of the designs, they hired him, and he became ultimately the chief stylist at GM, and he was responsible for what they called in the 40s the Buick Y Job, which was considered to be the first sort of dream car. And he followed it up with the LeSabre, and he's the one who was sort of, responsible for putting fins on cars, which he started with the 49 Cadillac.
Yeah, and I understand he was inspired by the P-38.
He was sort of entranced by the P-38 because the twin booms and the rudders reminded him of fins. And, he was one of the first stylists or designers, to say, that hired women to come up with designing the interiors because he felt they had a better flair for color and textures.
Now, Exner, as Fast Sports, just as John pointed out, was that Exner actually designed that. Well, you'd already mentioned that was that 57 Imperial was one of his designs. And Exner clearly followed the flow of using fins, as we can see in the picture on the right. But that was kind of his and I've seen some of their content. By the way, guys, if you want to model something that's really it would be, if you feel like getting into a kit bash, find a picture of one of the cars that Harley Earl had styled. One of the custom jobs he'd done before he went to work for the car industry, and you could probably kit bash a car into that, and that would get people excited, in the car section of any hobby show. Because that's the kind of not only for the work you put into it, they'd appreciate that you understood that much about the history of the thing. But Exner, I'm not sure about Earl, but I remember Exner. He eventually got sacked.
Well, he got the raw end of the stick because he came to Chrysler from Studebaker, and he was Chrysler's in the early 50s. The president of the company, who was K.P. Teller, who was an old Southern guy, and he felt that cars had to be high enough to wear your hat in while you were driving.
Uh-huh.
Therefore, they kind of all looked like really, old.
Which explains why they all look like bubble tops.
Ugly cars. So when they brought Exner in, and he started. His redesign started coming on in the mid-50s, like with the Chrysler 300C and the Plymouth, and they call that the forward look. And in 57 was when they came out with they sort of redesigned Plymouth, DeSoto, Dodge, Chrysler with the fins. And they caught GM with their pants down. Because it was so far advanced to anything else that was out there, and they had a very good year. What happened was when they were working on the cars for like 62, 63, and they had some really beautiful designs, somebody from Chrysler was over at the golf club in Detroit and heard one of the guys from GM talking about how they were downsizing the entire line, and rushed back in a panic and told them this, and they had meetings, and they were way far along in the designs. They had clay models. They were almost ready to go to, the pressing, and they said, you're going to have to downsize these cars, which is why you got all those weird cars in 62 and 63.
Uh-huh.
And so, he designed them, even though he did what he was told, because they called them plucked chickens, because compared to the original designs, they were just horrible looking cars, and they sold horribly because the public didn't accept them.
Well, here's a 62 I'm putting up. You'll see it in a few seconds.
And then they brought in Elwood Engel from Ford, who had just come off a big hit with the 61 Continental.
Mm-hmm.
And they brought him in, and he started to redesign everything, and redesigned it. You saw his cars come on like 64, 65.
Okay, well, I've got a picture of the 60. This is labeled a 62
That's
Chrysler.
Like a 61.
There. Okay, so this is what you're talking about, the Bubby and the plucked chicken?
No, this one was... this one right after this one was the one where it got real. Was the ones where it got really ugly. There's some photos which which show the actual cars in the styling studio that were made up in clay, and they were really attractive looking cars. And then they had really attack them.
Okay, I think that I'm about to put one up. I think maybe the kind you were talking about. What happens is sometimes if I put in like 62, it'll show a previous year car because that's when it was designed, not when it was. You know how it is with cars.
Right.
Let me put this picture up real quick. Give me a second here. Push a bunch of buttons, and now that I look at it compared to the other one, I see what you're talking about. I never actually looked at them side by side. Okay, there we go. You'll see in a few seconds. And,
Fast Sports says that Harley Earl, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Would also drive the Y job to work.
Yeah, that's what he's standing by in this. That's what he's standing by in this picture.
No, that's the LeSabre he's standing by.
Yeah.
And he would drive the LeSabre to work.
Yeah. That car's still around. It was a one-off, but it's still around. Yeah, I can see what you're talking about. The difference.
Shows all the time.
Yeah, I can see what you're talking about, though. These two cars, I can see how the one on top, which is the later one, the 63, 64, I can see how it does look skinned compared to the previous year.
Yeah, you see the sides are flatter.
Uh-huh.
There's less curves. There's less indents in the body. There's less angular, position of the lights, the grille, the bumper.
So Exner caught flack for something that was not of his. He got screwed over something that was not of his making.
He basically fell on the sword.
Who was it you said that replaced him? Because that name sounds familiar.
If they come to market with the original cars that he designed, they would have done much better.
And who was it you said that replaced him?
Elwood Engel.
Yeah.
And he was the guy who was responsible for the design of the turbine car.
Okay. Now I'm about to post another picture that I'm going to go out on a limb and assume is an Engel-inspired design because it has the look you were talking about. Oops, hold on.
Fast Sports says by 1960, Chrysler hired Elwood Engel as they had enough of Exner.
Well, again, was Exner a problem, or was it just they were somebody already looking for an excuse to get rid of him, or he just happened to be the wrong guy at the wrong place?
And he got blamed for something that shouldn't have happened.
Uh-huh.
Huh.
So let's see if this looks like one of the ones you're talking about, Engel Designs. Let me just give me just a second.
Now,
here.
he designed the turbine.
Well,
yes.
the look.
Yeah, that's what Fast Sports is just saying. He designed the turbine, which to me is a fascinating car. It's got an interesting
to everybody, it's
story.
A fascinating car. But you notice here by the early mid-'60s, the cars really had gotten cleaned up a lot. This is a 64, 65, I think, or maybe a 65.
I rode in the turbine car at the World's Fair.
That's right, but you pestered the crap. What was it? What you kept going on a ride until they let you on it? Yeah. Was it golden? The Willy? You got the Willy Wonka golden ticket or something?
They had a Willy Wonka thing. They had a theater at the Chrysler Museum, and it was about the story about the turbine car. And so on one of the seats, they had a ticket, and you got a promo car of the turbine car. Well, I must have waited online and gone into this theater like 10 times and never got it. Finally, they just pulled me aside and said, "Kid, here's the car. And here's the ticket. Go take the ride."
Now that's determination.
Yeah, this picture that you have in the upper left of the screen of that white Chrysler, that's a 65.
Right, and that's you're talking about. That's Engel's work.
Right. Now you notice how sort of square and cleaned up it is.
No tail fins.
Everything kind of flows together.
Yeah.
And that's how the entire line looked.
I always thought it was interesting that the designs of the cars at that day were like, okay, here's a car body, we're going to stick a hood, a windshield, and a top on top of it. They just stick up totally incongruent with the rest of the car.
Well, it was the style of the time.
If you go later in the Chrysler, heritage, and you go up to like 69, they had these cars, the hood was so long you could have landed a plane on it.
Oh, I gotta, are you guys at all familiar with the 1967 Cadillac Calais?
Oh, yes.
Okay, I have a story for you. Let me find a
Is
picture
that
of it real
the
quick.
30-foot long monster with
Yes,
two doors?
it is.
At the back?
Well, I think they also had a 4-door model, but this looks just like my mom's old car. Hold on.
I thought that was what you. Yeah, I thought that was the car you said your mom was driving.
Well, let me tell you the story real quick. We rarely bought new cars in our family, and I rarely buy them today. I mean, I usually buy one that's like, a couple of years old. We all know the deal on that, right? Let someone else take the depreciation hit. So anyway, when my parents got married in like 52 or 53, whenever it was, my dad, like every young husband of the 50s, he tells his bride, one of these days I'm going to buy you a Cadillac. And of course they had 7 kids and were both working. So, that little, they kind of didn't worry about that later in life. Well, anyway, so when I'm 16, so this would be 1977, and you got to remember, it's just a 12-year-old car back then.
See the difference in ages? I bought my wife an 83 Z28.
Well, anyway,
I wanted to drive it.
the dealership, I think it was the Ford dealership, had taken this thing on trade. It had belonged to the wife of a retired Navy Rear Admiral. It still had the 2-star base sticker on it. So if I went on military base, I always got saluted. But anyway, my mom drove it a little bit. He goes, I always promised her a Cadillac. So he got her the Cadillac. This thing was cherry. I mean, it was a proverbial little old lady car. And so...
That's a 65.
That's a 65? I thought it was. It's labeled 67 in the photo. Man, people don't know their dadgum cars. I wish they quit mislabeling stuff. I think this is the 67. I don't like that picture.
Well, sometimes it can be hard because they didn't make very many body styles sometimes between years.
No, and Cadillac was not known for its innovative thinking where that was concerned.
As long as the mob liked them, they kept making them.
Yeah.
They ever make any with suicide doors?
It's like
heck yeah.
cars with Lincolns. Why do you think they made them so long?
Let me. I almost bought a 65 a while back because the guy only wanted $5,000 for it. Well, it's actually quite a while back, but
Okay, I'll give you a piece of movie trivia.
Uh-huh.
Did you guys see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Oh, heck yeah. I love that movie.
Ken, did you see that?
Nothing comes to mind. Have to remind me.
The Cadillac that Brad Pitt drives Leonardo DiCaprio around in
Uh-huh.
is the same Cadillac that was in Reservoir Dogs that Michael Madsen had the trunk in.
That's the one he's getting the gas, dancing while he's going to get the gasoline out of it.
Yep.
Man, did he not play one of Hollywood's best sickos in that movie?
Yep. It was the same car.
So the motto is all about trunk space. That's what Larry said.
Heck yeah, man. Priorities. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think...
Weapons, bodies, everything. Contraband, everything you want in one trip.
Okay, that looks like the 67. It's got that... It doesn't have that thing in the middle of the grill.
My brother used to have a Cadillac Eldorado.
You're echoing, Ken.
Drive.
Put your headset on.
Yep.
And there was a cartoon or
that's a 67.
Something. Anyway, that this kid, I always tease my brother about this. This kid bought an Eldorado because they're front wheel drive, and back then, you always wanted to put slicks on it. Well, you had to put them on the front.
Ken.
My brother didn't do that, but there was a cartoon about it. What?
Houston to Ken, are you using your headset?
It's not me. I got my headset on.
I'm catching an echo. Somehow it's looping through a
One
microphone.
of the kids in the neighborhood, when I was growing up, his mother got a Tornado, which was the first front-wheel drive, sort of luxury car.
Mm-hmm.
And we would drive to school, and if we'd see girls, we'd offer them a ride. And if they'd, no, we're not taking a ride with you, he would wait till it snowed and turn the wheels towards them and put it in reverse and nail it and just cover them with snow.
What a joke. And this is why we can't have nice things. Well, anyway, my mom didn't like the big Calais, right? It was just too big. And I forget if it was a 2-door or 4-door, but anyway, I think it was a 2-door. Anyway, So they gave it to me to drive to school. Now I'm 16 years old, and it was even the same color. That's what I'm driving to school in. Full-size Pentmobile. Only it was in better condition than the one in the picture. I mean, it was nothing wrong with it. And
how many things did you hit with it?
There were a few. But the thing was built like a heavy cruiser. I mean, nothing left to scratch. I backed it into a friend's little pickup truck, left a dent in his bumper the size of my hand, and he did not even scratch the chrome on that thing. I'm pretty sure the chrome on that bumper is body armor by itself. But anyway, and my buddy Bill Hall and I took it down the road going about 100 miles an hour down. And Bill was driving around a rutted dirt road. He's got that stupid grin on his face, and the thing just had that Flow-O-Matic suspension. I mean, this was a rutted road, and you could have sipped hot tea. It was
Cadillacs didn't have radios; they had a stage for a live band.
Well, this one had the AM only. Also, that was another thing. I mean, it was,
yeah. But speaking AM radio for when you're out in the country.
And on the highway, driving conservatively, it got 12 to the gallon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That would pass anything except a gas station.
My
if I ever
first car
see
was a 67 Pontiac Catalina.
Yeah, I remember you talked about that with your homemade circuit breakers and fuses.
No. The starter switch broke, and I didn't have enough money to afford to go buy one, so I just made my own out of 2 buttons. There you go.
Yeah, you are the uber nerd.
As I could have used you, Ken. All the money it would have saved us.
If I ever find a model of that car, I'm going to buy it, period, though, because I'm going to paint it that light beige color with a light beige interior and make a model of 16-year-old me flying down the road with his hair on fire. And I'm going to tell you right now, though, it made me instantly popular with a certain group of guys. They were kind of like...
But what about the women, Max?
It's funny. It's funny. That thing was... I guess girls just don't appreciate a great car. It just didn't seem to impress them that much. They were interested in guys in their sports cars or on their motorcycles, and then like, yeah, take a 200-mile trip in that Datsun 240.
Hey, I was happy if I got 19 to the gallon with my car.
The USS Catalina?
Yep. Oh, that thing was huge. You could put a double bed in the trunk.
What was that, downhill with a sail on the roof?
And a hurricane with a tailwind.
Well, what I love about those gunboats is to save gas. When you crested a hill, you just popped it in neutral, and Mother Nature would speed you up on the way downhill, and you just about coast over the next one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do that sometimes.
I look, if I'm not mistaken,
towards the end of the week.
I'm probably remembering this wrong, but they used to put the gross weight on the registration those days. And I want to say the gross weight of that car was something like 3,800 or 4,200 pounds. I mean, literally 2 tons of Detroit steel hauling down the road. That's not a car, that's a weapon. You imagine plowing into a Volkswagen, that thing? Dum, 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 dum.
Wouldn't have a chance.
German speed bump.
I had a friend of mine in New York growing up as kids, and whenever someone would cut him off, he'd say, I wish I had a 48 Hudson. I'd just ram him.
When I was in high school, we moved from one school district over 2 school districts away, but we wanted to continue going back to our old high school because they had electronics program and a computer programming that nobody else in the county had. So my dad went out and he bought us an Opel Cadet. I think it was a 67, but I'm not sure about that.
Did he not like you?
I didn't know it at the time. Anyway, so a couple of weeks later, I asked Dad, hey, can I take it out? Can I take the car out on a date? First date in the car, right? And he said, yeah, okay, but be careful. Okay. So I went, picked my best buddy Ricky up, and we were going over to go pick up a couple of girls, and we were going to go out. And on the way over there, I went out, came up to this intersection that kind of crested the hill a little bit. And, I was all excited. I'm driving the car. My buddy's in the car. We're going to go pick up a couple of girls. So I wasn't paying probably as much attention as I should have. So I made this left-hand turn, and here comes a Dodge Polara. Put a big old pucker right in the front of that car. Didn't even scratch the paint on the car. I think that probably made me madder than what he did to my car.
Yeah.
The cop showed up and says, "Yeah, it's totaled." I said, "No, it can't be totaled." And they looked at it and said, "Yeah, sorry, it's totaled."
Dodge Bendelera. Well,
and my buddy, he called the girls up and they came and got him. They left without me.
Ken, if it makes you feel any better, we'd have all done the same thing. So speaking of tanks going down the road, you know, it's funny now we laugh at it, but I guarantee you the time it was not. We had some of the glue troopers that were, you know, and to paraphrase Monty Python, and now for something completely different. We had some glue troopers that were asking about, or talking about armor recently. And I've been itching to build a model tank lately, but I realized very few people build World War I model tanks. A lot of people build modern stuff, but it seems like most folks like to do the World War II stuff. And I found this picture, which I thought was perfect. And I want you to look at the bottom right, the little Stuart light tank, the Honey, as the Brits called it. And then above that, of course, is the famous Sherman. And these are two of the primary American tanks of the war. Then now I want you to look in the left column at the German tanks. Never mind going to the top. Just look at the middle. And you look at the Russian tanks also, and you realize it wasn't until 44, 45 we fielded anything even remotely close. And you look at all the tanks in between, and I'm thinking, is there a point we were not getting?
Yeah, looking at this picture, you kind of get that. Yeah, we didn't take the tank seriously.
I mean, the Stuart was used largely as reconnaissance and infantry support vehicle, and they did fine in the Pacific because the Japanese tanks are about the same thing. But imagine you're tootling on your little Stuart, and off to the left there you run across that Tiger or that Panther. I mean, if you try to fight that thing, that's just arrogant. But of course, we did make 44,000 Shermans, and it's one of the most, as kit models go, it and the Tiger tank and the Panther are probably three of the most modeled tanks. If somebody makes models and they make a tank, it's those three. But
Kudakillis is nice segue to tanks.
Well, Ken, your Cadillac, your Catalina would fall right about that. Right about the Sherman. My Cadillac would fall in right around the Churchill.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. Probably just as well armored, too.
But, well, the Germans used to call that little 37 millimeter gun the door knocker. But, well, you got to remember, though, you're looking at the progression of tanks throughout the war. I mean, little tanks like that, you look at the German tank in the bottom left, you know, it wasn't that big a tank. It was just, and also all the Germans had to do was stick it on a train and, you know, rail it to the battlefield. Ours had to get across an ocean, and the British ones had to get across the channel. So, logistically speaking, one of the reasons we didn't make a bigger tank than the Sherman for a long time was because it had to be able to go on a Liberty ship, which meant it had to be able to get up on a crane. And I think the cranes back then were limited to about 30 tons.
Garfield brings up an interesting point. It says originally they were called combat cars as the Army was not allowed tanks.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Not only that, after World War I, the Germans actually used modified farm tractors. They made them as agricultural equipment to train their guys how to deal with tracked vehicles. And in fact, the little Panzer I, which was a glorified farm vehicle, and it didn't see any well, actually, I don't think it saw any combat in World War II. By then, they were just using them for training. The Panzer IIs did, and but they were little vehicles, little 2-3 man vehicles. They weren't much, but it was, you know, it's something to learn on.
T.J. McCoy says my late father-in-law had 4 Shermans shot out from under him. Either he's very lucky or very unlucky. I'm not sure which.
Well, I'd say he's lucky if he's here.
Hopefully he drove better.
Lance is talking about watching the Patton tanks go down the street. I remember seeing the Pattons and later the M60s of the Army National Guard and the Marine Corps Reserves also down in Tallahassee. And a Sheridan out of Tallahassee was the first armored vehicle I ever sat in, and I didn't realize at the time. I mean, the guy was telling me it had aluminum armor, but, you know, you pound your fist on it. It felt like steel to me, but...
Bill Paul brought up, he said something really good. He says, one German tank ace asked about the Sherman. He said, one Tiger tank could take out 10 Shermans. When he asked how he won the war, he replied, there were usually 11 of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the pros and cons of each of these tanks. So first off, if you're going to build a model tank, there are a gazillion kits out there. I don't know what the worst armored kit ever built was, and there are a few of them that had some problems, but I don't think those kits are around anymore. Atlantis repops the, I think it's the M47. I've actually got one on the shelf that I've already built. I used it in that Exodus video. And it is it's an old kit that's been remade, but it's a good kit. I mean, there are some people that buy like all this photo etch stuff to gussy it up with, which that's fine if you want to put that on a $20 model. But it's actually, there's really nothing wrong with the kit. It makes a perfectly competent, easy to build. It makes a good day build. But it's hard to beat. It's hard to beat companies like, you know, Tamiya. Now Tamiya, actually back in the 60s, and I think I've told you guys this before, but the reason armor is mostly made in 1/35th scale is because of Tamiya. And that's because when they motorized their first tank, which was a Panther in 65, they just made the tank big enough to fit a couple of D-cell batteries, and it happened to scale out at 135. This is the days of box scale, you know, when there wasn't a protocol. But the scale turned out to be very popular, and most armor models are made in 135 to this day. Which always puts them slightly at odds with most aircraft that are 1/32nd scale. Now, that's not enough that you would notice if you put a 135 scale tank with a 1/32nd scale aircraft. Only the most holier than thou rivet counter is going to get torqued about that. But Tamiya actually sent some of its people down to it was Aberdeen or Fort Knox. I think it was Aberdeen. And they went out with cameras and measuring tapes and everything else. And whoever's whatever you're crinkling, stop it.
It's not me.
It sounds like you're chewing marbles. But
it's not me. I'm being good.
Okay, Steve. Anyway, whoa, all right, and he knocks it over. Kirk Enterprise, can you still hear me?
It's not me.
It's been my day for clumsy stuff.
Is that you?
Well, I just knocked the communicator over.
Oh, and you're yelling at me?
Well, that wasn't what caused. I got to turn it over. Something was crunching in the background, getting picked up by the mic. There we go. Oops, hold on. Okay, it goes that way. God, you think a guy who builds models will be able to put tab A into slot B? Okay, we're back. We're operational again. Anyway, so Tamiya sends a couple of guys down, and they're taking all kinds of measurements, photographs. They're literally counting rivets. And that's one reason their tanks are so super accurate, and still are, at least for the day. And now, of course, everybody does it all on a computer, and they can do photo overlays and stuff to make sure everything's just right. But the armor has always... What?
Diana Smith says, okay, Max is officially cut off.
Have been drinking water. I'm not having.
Yeah, we can put the phone down and come back in an hour.
I'm not having an adult. I'm not having an adult libation until I'm completely over this thing, and I might, never have to go run an errand or something. So anyway, but armor has always been. I mean, there've always been a lot of good models. Well, no, I wouldn't say they're all good. I've had some of them that were terrible, and of course, are those vinyl tracks that you can't get to hold together with a welding torch. But I think the key to getting those Lindbergh tracks to adhere is to use a brazing rod. But it's just their way of selling aftermarket tracks with pins in them. But
why would Tamiya try 1/50th scale aircraft?
Oh, now there's actually a reason for that. The 50th scale stuff, that was more or less sort of box
John
scale.
Diller brought that up.
Yeah, but there was actually a scale war back in the 60s. And I think it was the Russians preferred 1 to 30. The Japanese wanted 1 to 50, if I remember right. And the Americans were doing 1 to 48. And just probably through weight of numbers, because you had like Revell and Monogram and Aurora all doing them and started doing them in 148. And it just kind of got what you might call critical mass. And the Japanese finally realized that this is the scale people were going to buy stuff in. So that was just a Betamax versus versus VHS kind of thing. And the Russians were really big into 1 to 30 scale for armor, and the Japanese were like, no, we're doing 135. So the Japanese beat the Russians in the scale war on armor, and the Americans beat the Japanese in the scale war on airplanes. Tamiya made another swing at it back in the 80s, I think, with their 1 to 100 series aircraft, and I've actually built a couple of them. And, I mean, they're nice, typical Tamiya quality or Tamiya quality, but just a little too small, and it's not surprising that 1 to 72nd scale is more popular. That's about a small, 1 to 76, because it matched, what is it, the British 00, is that it? The railway gauge. All of these models for the longest time was all box scale stuff. It's just how big can we make the model and fit it in the standard box? And the whole idea of making all these things the same scale didn't really start fleshing out, because kit models were an evolutionary thing. No one sat down with a plan and said, we're going to make models of all these things in these numbers, in these scales. So it was never a cohesive front. It was always every company doing their own thing. Whoever's chewing the celery.
It's not me.
I didn't say it was you. It's weird what a microphone will pick up and what it'll drop.
High frequency noises typically like to pick up.
I remember you and I were talking one time, and Deb was back there just doing some dishes, and the clinking noise was coming through louder than your voice was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yes, 00 is 176, HO is 187th. And it's odd, 187 scale models, there's only a handful of them out there. You thought there'd be more because they could go with the model railroad stuff. And if the model railroad stuff was the same scale as the kit model stuff, it'd leave you a lot of options, because there's so much stuff made for model railroads.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and
yeah.
I would say there's more stuff made for model railroads than anything else. But the tanks, but the tanks are. I'm going to build a tank again soon. I got to have a couple of kits. One of my coworkers said he used to build armor kits as a kid. I'm thinking about giving him one of the. He built more modern stuff, and I have a self-propelled gun that was sent to me by a glue trooper. And I was thinking if I can find him, I might give him that. But he's like, I got kids. I don't have time. Trying to lure him back into model building. So real quick, guys, if you've built a model tank, what is the worst model tank you remember building? Either the most tedious or the worst job you ever did. And I can tell you what mine is. My brother got a 148 scale Stewart light tank, and I want to say it was Hasegawa, but I'm not sure. And it came in, in a box this big, and then the model's that big in 148 scale when you're done with it. And that thing, I made such a glue bomb out of it because everything on it was so small. And, of course, tanks are kind of the easiest thing to build because any blemishes, you just splotch paint on them and call it battle damage. But the more you deny, Ken. Anyway, that was unquestioned my worst tank. Although I've had a couple of tanks where the body didn't want to go together with a darn. But the biggest problem is usually the tracks. It's with plastic tracks. It's hard to get any track. Not to get to make good looking tracks sag without heating them up. That's why a lot of the hardcore guys just go ahead and get the metal tracks. And on Russian tanks, track sag is kind of important because Russians have a lot of track sag. I'm hearing some kind of crunching noise.
I can't stand to listen to somebody chew.
Well, I'm hearing. I'm hearing some. It sounds like chewing, but it could be just like a fan going in the background. It's weird the way these noises carry over. Anyway, but although now you got the AFV club and everything, and you've got some companies that specialize in armor, and I built that Tacoma Rata, the Land Cruiser, and it's a good kit, but unfortunately, it just has solid plastic tracks that I just, it's there's some room for improvement. But that being said, it's still a good. But it thinks $55, and although it comes with a couple of little the upper left there, the mouses, it comes with 2 of those with it, and I'm kind of like, well, that's pretty cool. Your tank's so big, it comes with 2 support tanks, and it tells you something about your tank when you have to have 2 super heavies escorting it. 100 pieces of track and 10 for the yeah. I tell you what,
didn't the Abram used to have a support tank to go, or a support, not tank, but a support vehicle go with it too?
Yeah, fuel truck. The joke about the Abrams was it couldn't go anywhere without a fuel truck behind it. It's a great tank, but it's a great. A lot of fuel. The Abrams is a great tank, but it guzzles gas, and unlike other tanks, it guzzles gas even when it's just idling because it's still a jet turbine. However, and you'll appreciate this, Ken, being a railroad guy.
What?
They are working on, I'm not kidding. They're working on an electric tank, and it would still have a turbine engine. But the idea would be that it would only be when it's needed. The rest of the time, then they say the thing could idle for 4 to 8 hours with the engine off. And you got to understand something. Tanks have 3 things that are really bad that get them destroyed. They have a lot of heat, which makes it easy for all kinds of weapon systems and visual systems to pick them up. They make a ton of noise, which is bad. And they have a startup warm-up time, which if you're sitting cold and the enemy pops up, it can take you longer than is uncomfortable to get everything running, which is why they tend to sit there with the engines idling, which guzzles gas, makes a lot of racket, and creates a heat source. These electric tanks. Now, some of you guys, I'm sure you're probably typing it in right now. When the Tiger 1 came out, I think it was Ferdinand Porsche was playing with an electric drive using basically submarine technology, electric engines with a diesel engine to run the generator. But he was pushing the state of the art, and the thing kept bursting into smoke. But now, with of course advantages that are made, they're talking about these electric motors. One thing is they can put an electric motor on each wheel if they have to. Not that they will; it's just an option. So that if you get detracked, it may not be necessarily a mobility kill. But the whole idea behind this, though, is that this thing could sit off, because they call it cold. And imagine an Abrams sitting cold. Bad guys pop up over the hill. They don't hear anything because you're completely quiet. They don't see anything with their IR because everything's cooled down. So you're not making any noise. You're not putting a heat source. And they come popping over the hill. You throw a couple of switches and everything just comes to life, and you're shooting without even cranking the engine, and rolling and moving. And then you can fire the engine up as necessary, to run the generator, because the batteries will give you X amount of life. And this has got the armor guys excited. And bear in mind that this doesn't necessarily mean building a new tank. I mean, you might, but you could also probably rip the guts out of an existing one and drop this system in there. So it's a long time from being fielded, but that would give tankers a great tactical advantage. If you guys remember Kelly's Heroes, he's talking about, the tanks have to crank their engines every so often to, warm up the oil and keep so they're combat ready. Well, that's actually true. Tankers have to run the engines and idle them and everything. And in cold weather makes it
essentially it's a hybrid.
Basically, yeah. Basically, it's a hybrid, and that means
they got that same technology in new train engines too.
Mm-hmm. It's something a cousin to that, and so anyway, that's just something that they're playing with, and it'll be years before it comes to pass. But when it does, it could redefine. It'll be a proprietary technology, but it could redefine tank warfare, and apparently, we're not the only ones playing with it either. And
it's the Prius of armor.
But the Army's not doing it, I'm sure they'll tout the whole green thing, but they're not doing it to be green. They're doing it to be combat effective. And electric tank is, it's like a lot of time people said there was no way you'd ever be able to run diesels underwater in a diesel electric submarine. And who was it? The Swedes figured out a way to do it. So they can run submerged without snorkeling. They can run submerged on their diesels, which kind of freaked everybody out because they don't have to snorkel, they don't have to surface, they can stay down like a nuke boat as long as they got fuel. And of course they still don't have nuclear boat range, but still, they're coastal submarines. They're not blue water subs, and that's all they need.
But you need a new crew after every sortie.
Yeah. They don't call them pig boats for nothing. But they won't even tell us, the Americans, how they did it. It's become quite the thing, in nautical circles, that they can run a diesel completely submerged. They figured out a way to process everything and capture it so that it doesn't go over the side. They don't need a snorkel, which that's just cool. And tanks will probably be the same way in the future, and now they're working on aircraft. But aircraft are so energy intensive all the time, though. They're because it takes so much energy to keep an airplane aloft. And one reason I won't buy.
Well, most of the energy is getting it up there. Then there's a certain much smaller amount to keep it there, and then there's very little when it comes down.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you right now, Ken, that the amount of energy needed in cruise, if you're talking about jet speeds, it's still substantial. And there's nothing out there that has more pound per ounce, more push per pound than fossil fuels.
Energy density.
Yeah, energy density than fossil fuels at the moment. But but you got to give the Swedes credit. But look, if we could, if I mean, to give you an example of how, if you were to, I see them all the time, these Neo engines on the Neo Airbuses and the 787s, they have these enormous cans on them, and you look down the middle, especially when the fans are spinning, you can see through it. It's almost like it's hollow, and that engine, that power egg, is so small that you can see all the way around it and actually see through the engine. Like, good God, that tiny. Now they're geared jet engines. They're running. I think it's orbital ring gears with five gears in it, which allows it to gear down the N1 blade so that rear engine can turn a small. It's like riding a 10-speed bike in first gear. It's real easy to pedal, but you can't go real fast. Well, these jets don't have the performance of an old pure jet, but they sip fuel. And yeah, they peter out a little bit up at altitude, but it's worth it for the fuel savings. You'll never climb faster, except in a rocket, than a jet that's a straight jet. I mean, everything hot's going out the backside. No wind, no turbo fans or any of that stuff, because jet engines get their thrust off of the temperature difference, the engine pressure ratio. And these old straight cans, they suck gas horribly down low, but when they get up high, where the air is super cold, even though it's thin, it's super cold. So when that hot gas goes out the back and you're getting these 2-to-1 pressure ratios, it just squirts that airplane along like it's coming out of the end of a water pistol. And the speed and response is incredible. But you're still guzzling. Of course, you're a lot more efficient up high. The fans are the exact opposite. They're super efficient down low. They're very fuel efficient up high, but they're working really hard. I've actually seen them try to over-temp that cruise on a hot day because they're trying to use that fan, and they're trying to get by on the hot thrust that's coming out of this intersection. And it's just not as much as an old straight pipe jet. Everything's a trade-off. But most of us would agree that fuel efficiency and not having a bunch of black smoke going out the back of the engine is a worthwhile trade-off. But so there's still a great deal of power delivery that's necessary. That's more than any battery's going to handle. Now, I did see the plan. I always wonder why this hybrid technology didn't make its way into aircraft, and now it is. There are a couple of tilt rotors and a few other things they're working at that are actually using small turbines to power generators, to power electric motors. That there's probably going to be some future in that.
That would work really well for the Osprey.
Yeah, I wouldn't have to have that cross shaft. U.S. electric tank made by Tamiya. Yeah. When America does get its electric tank working, okay, we talk about Tamiya was doing this 40 years ago. But
well, the one thing about a tank is you don't have to worry about the weight of the batteries.
Well, tanks have well, actually you do. People don't appreciate weight on a tank is a big deal. Suspensions go, and torsion bar suspensions are pretty much standard now on all tanks, but they're still, they only take so much. And one of the problems you're running into with tanks now is they have so much armor on them, but no matter how thick the armor gets, somebody just makes a faster or more capable anti-tank round. And after a while, it gets to the point you might as well just, fix your armor and make the tank faster in order to hit. You make a thicker armored tank, we'll make a bigger gun, as this poster shows perfectly. But
yep.
If you look at the American tanks on the upper right,
the guns got longer and longer too.
Yeah, well, you look at the American tanks on the upper right, and the look at those 3 tanks across the top, or actually the 6 across the top, and you're kind of like, yeah, no problem. We'll just make a bigger tank with a bigger gun to handle your bigger tank with the thicker armor. And
it's a male thing.
It most certainly is. Now, hey, no arguing with the truth. Now, talking about other things, and now for something completely different. I borrowed these from, I think it was Ed Nash's channel. I mean, I've seen some ugly airplanes, but I think we have 7 winners here. Well, actually, the one on the bottom's not that ugly. It's just weird. But those 6... I mean, somebody would have to flown that thing into combat and had tried to make the enemy take them seriously.
Oh, I like
the one in the middle.
left.
Oh, okay. Gentlemen, choose your favorites.
That looks like they got made by a window factory.
Well, I tell you what, the one in the dead center in the middle looks almost like a cartoon airplane, but it's got a smiley face. How can you not? How can it's
yes, that's the Japanese model.
It's the most actually, it's a German airplane. That's the most comical of the lot. But I think the butt ugliest, and it's hard to say, but I'm gonna. It's a combination between upper left and upper center. One upper center.
Upper center gets my vote.
Yeah, that's a Blackburn, I think. But I'm not sure the one on the upper left doesn't edge it out. I know it's hard to see. Yeah, the Blackburn may get the ugly airplane of the year award.
Well, at least the one in the middle shows it can fly.
True. This is true. It looks like it taxied in of JJ the jet plane. Hey, it's been JJ's grandfather. But the
one with all the windows kind of reminds me of that picture that somebody sticks up on the to try and get people to click on it.
Yeah.
It has a battleship turret on the top of it and guns sticking out all over the place.
Actually, they just covered that airplane. That is a Photoshop of a real airplane, a Kalinin. And they actually did build and fly one, although obviously it never would have flown with battleship turrets on it. Although it would make a fun kit bash, I got to admit. So I'm sure somebody has kit bashed that photoshopped image. But although the Kalinin did have about 9 gun positions on it, 2 of them in each sponson down on the wheels.
Fast Sports says the one in the middle looks like a British car with wings.
But the Ed covered each one of these airplanes, and each one of them was made for a specific purpose. The 2 of them on the right were actually built as high visibility night fighters back in the early 30s. And I'm like, well, he pointed out that although they had to use this failed Supermarine engine or Rolls-Royce, was it the Goshawk engine? I forget, but the engine failed them both. But they had excellent visibility. I mean, they were tailor-made to what the RAF asked for, and neither one of them was adopted. But they did have excellent visibility, and they wanted a biplane so it'd be stable to fly at night. And so, but I wouldn't want to taxi up in one. I mean, but the one in the middle is just the most ridiculous looking one. Although I think the one above it is the ugliest one. Because the one in the middle, it's just adorable. But you know what? If somebody said, hey, Max, let's go in the business of making kit models, I'm like, well, let's don't compete with everybody. Let's make these 7 airplanes. They have all been one-offs, so by God, nobody else is making them.
That's where it says these designs are examples of era engineers who graduated last in their class.
Now, speaking of not ugly airplanes, but ugly performing aircraft, I was collaborating with Mike Machat recently, and for those of you familiar with the famous X3 stiletto, you may know that something is not quite right with this picture. And I had made a joke to Mike about where we've been talking about the X3, which never had the engines it was supposed to have. And as a result, it could barely get through Mach 1 in a dive. But it had such a tiny tail on it that had it ever tried for Mach 2 like it was designed to do, it would have been a victim of inertial roll coupling. It would have gone... In fact, the actual X3 is the airplane that discovered inertial roll coupling, and that was subsonic. Now, just super quick aerodynamics 101. When a jet gets up around the speed of sound, you get that boundary layer around it. You know, it's trying to break the sound barrier. And it sends the center of pressure of lift back. And what happens is it starts, the airflow starts widening out. It starts blanking out the tail. Thus, the fighter pilot saying, a fighter, you can never have too much tail. At least I think they were talking about the airplanes. But anyway.
Sure, we'll go with that.
But the point is that if you notice, even today, like the F-22, the F-15, all these fighters have gigantic tail fins on them. And that's because when they get up in the really high-speed regime, they need that to be able to deal with the air that's trying to separate, and a lot of other very complex aerodynamic thingies. But the original, back in these days, back in the 50s when this thing was flying, they didn't know that. And they lost...
They also had full movement steps, too.
Well, that was starting to clue them in, but they didn't have the full picture. That's how they lost Mel Burnett in the X2. He was actually finished with his run. He started to turn back for base, and the plane went out of control. Nobody understood why. I mean, it was inertial roll coupling. Now, what that means is, basically, the airflow blanks out the tail, so it's like throwing a dart with no feathers on the back of it. Okay, it doesn't follow. There's nothing aerodynamic at this point because the air is blanked out over the tail by the shock wave. So what happens is the airplane just follows the heaviest part of the airplane. Now inertia, weight is the driving factor. And the airplane just rolls, and that's why the airplanes tend to go like this or like that. It's like I say, if you throw a dart that has no tail feathers, the heaviest part of the dart's what tends to go forward, which is usually the middle. Thing just goes out of control. Well, if they'd gotten up to Mach 2, or even close to it, with that dinky tail that originally came with, it would have, just zipped out of control and probably spun to its death, to its ever-ending doom. But anyway...
It does look a lot like a starfighter.
Well, the X3, even subsonic, and fortunately was packed full of all kinds of measuring equipment because it was a research aircraft. The pilot was bringing it back, and it went out of control on him, and he got it back because he was subsonic. But they were trying to figure out what the heck happened, and this was the airplane that actually, because when they started downloading all the data off the airplane and examining it, they realized what was going on. And so that's probably its single biggest contribution to aerospace. And they started realizing that, hey, up in these high speeds, the weight starts taking over as we get close to the shock cone and everything. So what I did was I drew this picture. I was like, what we should do is kitbash X-planes that were noted for having all these problems with the correction in the design that would have made them work. So, of course, I did an X3 with a really big tail on it. And if it had a tail like that, it might have been a viable airplane. And then we had the rockets. But
Barry said the X3 had air conditioning.
It was the first one X-plane that had it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't know they had room for it.
Well, I think the real reason they put the air conditioning on these things was because they needed to keep a lot of the equipment cool. It was all tube equipment. And anybody that's ever used an old tube radio.
Engines, you might as well have air conditioning.
Yeah.
Lance brings up a really good point. Johnny Quest jet plane.
Oh, heck
The
yeah.
Dragonfly, which I never knew that had a name.
It did. Yep, that's right. It's the Dragonfly.
Yeah,
What did you think it was, the Haji Mobile?
Oh, God.
I didn't know it had a name. I never knew that.
And then, Your Honor, is when they ended my YouTube channel. And we went down in flames. But
It also had skids too, didn't it? Instead of wheels.
the X2 had the X15 had rear skids. The X2.
No, the Dragonfly.
Oh, it had a center skid. Yeah, and it actually had. And you know what? I think it had a nose wheel, but it had a center skid. It may have been all skids. I don't know. Hanna-Barbera had their own read on physics.
You think?
Going back to the Bedrock days.
Yeah,
Like the
Flintstones,
Jetsons car that folds up to a briefcase.
Well, it's funny you should mention that. I watched a 3-hour documentary that was very professionally done on YouTube about Johnny Quest. And, of course, like all of us, I watched that as a kid. But watching and even I knew the animation was a little stilted and a little cheap. But I'm sorry. Any show that ends with two guys in jetpacks, one carrying a 45 and the other carrying a bazooka, I'm good with it. I mean, that show...
Yeah, well, I know what you're talking about when they were floating over the water with those jetpacks on.
Yeah. Oh, come on. That show was the most unapologetic, pro-masculine, just, you know, boys will be boys and we got the coolest boys' toys. I mean, they're shooting machine guns. They're shooting, they're firing at one clip I love is when they're supposed to be in the Amazon or someplace, and all the alligators or crocodiles are trying to get on the boat, and you hear the guy go, "Yeah, everybody grab guns," and Johnny and Haji got guns, they're all shooting, like, "Keep shooting, Bob." I'm like, you will never see them make one like that today.
All they had to do was throw the dog to the alligators. They wouldn't have to shoot at.
Bandit. But I am telling you,
the kids scream.
if somebody gave me the rights to make a Johnny Quest movie today, I would make it like a live action. I would make it just like the original cartoon. I mean, with all the violence and gunplay and gas guzzling, noise making jets and rocket belts and everything else. And I actually worked on a screenplay because Godzilla makes everything better. It was literally, I did the treatment.
And we had to slide that one in.
Of course.
Who would you have cast as Ray Fannin in this new, episodic Johnny Quest?
Oh this would be a Toho approved standalone movie. Johnny Quest meets Godzilla.
Didn't see that one coming.
Hey, my brother and I worked it. We've already got the basic storyline worked out. And
just kill everything in sight.
But
and let's blow up the nuke plant.
You don't blow it up. You munch on it for dinner. But and it has, what is that? What was it? What was Benton Quest's nemesis? Was it Ming? Was that, And the movie will never play in China because the Chinese are going to be the bad guys. Which, by the way, if you guys,
Buck Rogers.
if you guys are at the Hobby Lobby or whatever,
yeah, that was Buck Rogers. I don't know what was in Johnny Quest.
What? Oh, by the way, if you guys are at the Hobby Lobby and you see the new Maverick F18s, if you feel like grabbing one, grab it, because I am so happy to report that I didn't know this until just recently. I'm sure some of you had seen it in the media. When they made the new Maverick movie, he's throwing on his old jacket that he was wearing in the original film, or one just like it, and it has the nationalist Chinese, or what we call the Taiwanese flag, on back. And the Chinese Communist Party raised holy heck about that, said if they didn't edit that part out or CGI it out, they were going to ban the film in China. And to their credit, Bruckheimer and crew said, nope, we're not doing that. We're leaving it as is. the movie isn't going to be shown in China, and it still went past the $1 billion mark without kowtowing to the CCP, which has got them a little concerned, and rightfully so, and good. But I'm like, you know what? Next time at Hobby Lobby, just to show support, for that, I'm going to grab one of those Maverick F-18s. And I don't have an F-18 on the shelf anyway, so I'm just very happy that they did that. Now, Ken did give me an old from the original movie, the Maverick, the F-14 with the F5, and I painted it up, and it actually made the Fine Scale Modeler website several years ago. But I still have it in glass in the under glass in the Tarbis today. I put it, with the famous. The only problem is the little lead rods I use keep. So Maverick keeps doing the experiment showing that an F-14 can't really get that close to an F5 inverted without colliding, and I have the models to prove it.
Dr. Ahmed Karim was the villain in Johnny Quest.
Really? Wait, no, that was the one with the mummy. The one that killed Quest's mother and Benton Quest's wife was the Chinese bad guy. I think it was Mim, I think. Somebody knows. But Ming the Merciless, Ming the Merciless Flash Gordon, yeah. But anyway, he was one of the few recurring villains in Johnny Quest. And they even used him in the new Johnny Quest. But they didn't want to use guns, so they gave Johnny like a power bracelet with a weapon. And I was like, oh man, just give him a 45. One thing I would do though, if I was going to make Johnny Quest today, and the way I wrote it was going to be back in the 60s though, not current time. And we were actually doing a 3-way crossover with Sky King, Johnny Quest, and Godzilla. And
and what was Penny, like the superhero list of the show?
No, just the eye candy. Well, it meant to be. Zen or Zim, yeah. I think it was Zim. I think.
Down the fort. I know, they were the lab assistants while Sky was out, like, battling the nemesis.
Okay? Look, this is a 60s style movie.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think of this stuff while you're flying?
All the time.
All this stuff? Because if you do, I might have to start flying on Southwest.
Actually, I don't think of it when I'm flying, but I'm not going to tell you when I do think of it, because let's just say I think of it when all of us tend to be lost in thought, and let's not go any further with that one. Because at the moment, there's just nothing else to do. It's amazing what stimulates the human creative process. We had it all worked out, man, and I wish I still had that picture. I'd actually photoshopped a photo, but.
Actually, now I'm surprised that you haven't come up with a new take on Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea versus Godzilla.
Now, okay, let me tell you right now, you cannot mix those two. All right?
Why not?
Have you ever seen a submarine survive a Godzilla movie?
You could have the flying sub flying around keeping Ghidra at bay while Godzilla fights the sea view.
The tradition of submarines in Godzilla movies is to submerge and never come up again.
See, now, what you could do is you could spin this as a movie where the sea view, since it's a research vehicle, it's not really a Navy ship, they give tours to go see Godzilla sleeping under the Pacific. And he awakens.
Hold up. I got to write this down. Sea view, tour boat.
They'll arrest us.
Godzilla.
Anyway.
Hold on, we can make this work. Okay, guys, you now have your next diorama challenge.
Back to X-planes.
Oh, that does give me an idea. Hold on.
Get all those ideas on the throat.
Wait a minute. You just gave me an idea for a group build later on.
To Godzilla. It's like a strange way we weaved this.
Okay, hold on. We could do a crossover group build at some point where you take two movies or two unrelated genres and cross over. Put them together in a diorama or something. So we might do that at some future time,
You mean like Evil Dead and Supernatural?
Why not? Have more fun. Something like Evil Dead in the Wild Wild West, or Supernatural and the X-Files. Well, they're almost the same show. Godzilla versus King Kong.
You just watch next television broadcast season. They'll be coming out with somebody's going to come out with one of these shows we're talking about.
Godzilla versus James Bond.
Well, hey, they had Godzilla versus Superman. They had Godzilla versus Batman. I actually have my Godzilla model and my Seaview flying sub. They're completely off scale, but yeah, make it easy. A little Photoshop.
Just Godzilla's little brother.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Godzilla's
Steve.
little
You have
brother.
started something. I don't want to see the original handwritten draft on perforated paper.
Boy, I really hope Mike Machad isn't watching this.
We be so far off the rails.
Mike will be saying, yeah, I'm never answering their emails again.
Oh, Godzilla versus King Konky. Ooh.
I saw that. Godzilla versus Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Please, all you'd see is Godzilla. You'd see that'd be just. We could rename that one Diabetic Godzilla because he'd eat the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man and too much sugar.
You write all these screenplays for all these shows. They become big TV shows, big movies, and we all find out that honey is the brains behind these shows.
I get my telepathic download from her every morning. Time Tunnel and Combat. Hey, I like that one. Somebody already did Godzilla versus Bambi.
What are we down to, like 6 viewers now?
Godzilla versus Powerpuff Girls.
Everybody's laughing so hard that they're not paying attention.
Metal Universe Godzilla. Already did that one, yeah. I made Spock into a stormtrooper. That's cross. Actually, I've seen several. Yeah, you're the one. Oh, you're the one that did the Spock stormtrooper. I thought that was awesome. I actually did a video about that. If they had a crossover between Star Trek and Star Wars universes, and if Vulcans were force sensitive, then they would make excellent Jedis. Ha ha.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So the X3 now.
Honey does her best writing in her box. So do I.
That's how you get the clues. Honey doesn't talk; she just writes it in her box.
I have to read the litter box. Excuse me, I have to go read the litter droppings. And saving the times when sweetie, you got that one upside down.
We don't.
Rat Patrol and the Rat Patrol and Two Broke Girls. That's just a couple of GIs on a weekend in New York.
What about the Rat Patrol and Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS?
SS, yeah. First X-rated film I ever saw in a theater.
Shoot, fella, gonna have a good time in Vegas with all that stuff.
Godzilla versus the Teletubbies. Oh dear God. No, zombie Teletubbies. That's it. Zombie Teletubbies. You know, probably somebody in Hollywood is watching this or going to watch this later and go, hey, guys, maybe we should write some of these ideas and get them patented before these guys do.
We should hire these guys.
There you go.
Hey, just call Hammer Studios, man. You guys want to relive the good old days? Roger Corman's still around.
I could have killed us. Star Wars and Star Trek. Stormtroopers mess with all their Troopers miss with all their shots, yet the red shirts die.
Yeah. Oh, here's one for you. Starship Troopers versus Stormtroopers.
What about Starship Troopers versus Godzilla?
Wow. They got spaceships, man. I think that'd be a one-way fight, but now Space Godzilla. But wait a minute, you got to put them on a planet where they got to fight it out. How about here we go.
Bunch of Godzillas.
Oh, it's funny you should mention that. I actually had an idea for a gag diorama, and that is Godzilla with like the 1 to 144 scale Godzilla, but
make sure Godzilla's wearing a red shirt. Perfect.
But but with a 135 scale tank, right? So Godzilla's much smaller by comparison, and have the caption read, "Maybe if we don't
How
shoot
about
it."
Starship Troopers versus Riddex?
Riddex. Okay. They were the Riddex in that movie. Hey, Orke! Clandathu, Orkin here. That's it. They sent Starship Troopers when they should have sent Orkin. No, but have a 135th scale tank with the 144 scale Godzilla. And the caption...
problem with the X3.
And the caption just read, "Maybe if we don't shoot, he'll go away." Godzilla versus Darth Vader. Well, I was done with the X3. That was all I was
never
just...
wears a red shirt.
Okay, now you guys got me wondering. I got to check something out real quick.
What, on these boxes?
Yes, I have to go read the turd leaves. Godzilla.
Just thinks of the box artwork on some of those.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty good.
Ideas. I'm just curious if any, because I'm sure. Oh my God, Godzilla versus what is that? Godzilla versus crossover madness.
Darth Vader.
Here's Godzilla versus Transformers. That actually wouldn't be too bad. It's all part of the Godzilla multiverse. Anguirus versus Tarzan. Okay. Apparently we are not lost projects. I told you, Godzilla versus Batman. Hold on. I'm not even joking here.
Now, how big was the tail on the X3?
It's going to have to be the size of the one on a Fox bat.
That's why you never had any cross-coupling problems.
Inertial roll coupling. Okay. Just so you know, I mean, I did not have time to put this together. Just type it in. Somebody's already got it out there, and there we go.
I'm watching on the screen. You're looking like you're having a seizure. Are you okay?
I'm fine. Well, that's such a relative thing. All right, here we go.
I think he's decided he's just lost control.
Hold on, it's coming up here any second now. There's like a 10-12 second delay. There we go. Lost Projects, Godzilla versus Batman. There are some days you just cannot get rid of an oversized reptile. The Omega Man in glitter.
If one of those ever shows up in your backyard, just call Batman.
He's saying Zombie Barney. I had already said Zombie Teletubbies.
Just get that bad signal cranked up.
Anywho. Well, that was really all that I had put together. So now...
That ended about a half hour ago.
Hey, the whole idea of this thing is just to have a good time. Yak about whatever.
A $2 box.
Wow. I'm just hitting all kinds of wrong buttons here. Oh, that's because I got these glasses on. Sorry, it's supposed to be weird. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll stand by. The captain can't land right now. He's looking for his glasses. Okay, and X3, turn that on, move that up one.
Batman's bomb looks to be like an Acme product.
Hey, don't be dissing Acme now. Say what you will about them. Say what you will about them. Their deliveries were as reliable as Amazon.
Ooh, Starship Troopers versus aliens. Ooh, that might be interesting.
Well, that's kind of what we got. I'll turn the logo off again. Well, we got about 20 minutes left, guys. Any kit model stuff you want to talk about? Oh, yeah, there is actually one kit model thing I forgot about. The Humbrol paints. All right?
The what?
Humbrol. It's a company that makes paints and models. They own Airfix.
Oh.
And everybody has been freaking out that Humbrol paints are going away. They're enamels. First off, they got new acrylics out in those cool little bottles. which is a nice touch. I need to get some. I mean, if nobody around here carries the stuff. And
why do you have the X3 and those other planes up there? Is this supposed to be one of those, which one is alike the other?
one of these things is not like the others. No, I'm just filling space while we finish out the live stream because
Show my flea market find.
Okay. Oh, did I? Yeah, I think I downloaded that. Oh, hold on. I haven't downloaded that to the computer yet, so I'm going to have to, let's see. I don't want to plug my phone in at this point. Let me just, okay, hold on. Let's hear some.
Godzilla versus
You want me to email it to you?
You know what? Yeah, send it to my email. Somebody scored big time today. And by the way, did you inventory the parts?
What's that?
Have you inventoried the parts?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Go ahead and send it to my email, and I will.
I'll email it to you right now. Hold on.
Okay. I got to start going to more flea markets.
Godzilla versus Judge Dredd? I don't know about that one.
Why not? I am the law.
This is the giggle show. Yeah, we're being silly.
Hey,
tonight,
the whole idea is come here is just have a good time. And
I hope if you...
real quick, I got an email from Nick Argento up at Glencoe. I had sent him a question. There was he's up in Worcester, Massachusetts, in that area, and a long time ago there was the Worcester Toy Company, which is a sister of Daypole, and I asked him about it because they made all these big plastic toys, but he said no. Apparently they made stuff like giant ketchup bottles and rides for kids and stuff. I mean, big stuff, not models. Glencoe's just issuing the Aurora Jenny. Cool. If you like one, let me know. Absolutely, I'd like one. So anyway,
Fiberglass Freaks makes official 1967 Batmobile replicas.
Oh, you guys are all familiar with that story, I'm sure.
Which one?
About Fiberglass Freaks and the lawsuit?
I
all right.
heard it.
Okay, real quick. Godzilla versus Abbott and Costello. Why not? You tell you they took on, what was it, Frankenstein? Okay, so Fiberglass Freaks is the only authorized manufacturer of replica Batmobiles. And I think he's in Indiana.
About full-size ones?
Yeah. And they're $250,000 a pop, or $210,000 a pop.
Huh,
now,
sure.
I'm going to give you the sanitized version. I'm going to keep my opinion out of it because I think once you hear the story, you'll have the same opinion I do, but I don't want to take sides. Anyway, the guy is a straight-up businessman. He's made about 25 of these things. It takes him about a year to make one. He usually has 6 or 7 in production at any time. He had a buyer from California, and I want to say it was San Mateo, California, who put a huge down payment, and he was making it. But then the guy ghosted him for about 8 months, and he was due a $20,000 installment, and he never, like I say, he was ghosted for about 8 months. So he changed the order of deliveries, the one that was nearing completion. He just said, okay, I'm just going to sell this to the next person. And the guy who had ghosted him went to the back of the line. Not that he didn't make his car, he just went to the back of the line. Well, eventually the guy made contact with him, was furious when he found out he'd lost his place in line. Did pay for the rest of the car right there. He says, okay, I'll finish your car. But it's number 9 now, not number 1, so it's going to be like another 6-8 months before you get it. The guy was so upset that he went to his buddy, the sheriff in San Mateo.
Who was his neighbor?
Yeah, they're
Who
buddies.
was his neighbor?
Yeah. And he basically, I'm just going to say, convinced the sheriff to do something. And by the way, guys, I used to be a police officer. So this is something I actually have a little bit of experience with. Now, sheriffs do civil process. Sorry. Again, read the thing before you hit the button. Okay, so This is a civil case. There's been no theft, no crime. But he convinced the sheriff to get a couple of warrants against the guy. Theft by conversion, I think, was one of them, and I forget what the other charge was. But this was basically an individual who was just upset with the way he got treated, and he convinced the sheriff to get 2 criminal warrants sworn out against the owner of, what was the name of it? Crazy Customs or something. Anyway, now that in itself is bad enough, but normally, since they actually went to the DA who shot it down, lawyers who shot it down, said, "Now there's not a crime here." But the sheriff, once he got involved, he was able to get the warrants issued. Now, normally the way this works is, and again, criminal warrants should never have been issued, but assuming they are, there are some where they will extradite. Godzilla versus Fred Sanford. Oh, please, I'm coming.
I had to slide that in there somehow.
I'm coming, Elizabeth.
So anyway, I'm coming, Wheezy. But what you would do is you would call the local sheriff's department. Hi, I'm the sheriff of San Mateo, to the sheriff in Indiana. I've got these 2 warrants. Can you grab this guy for me, or serve these warrants? And they'll execute them. And if it's something like a murder charge or kidnapping, really serious, then they grab them and they extradite them. Okay, extradition is not a small thing, but normally they just have the lawyers fight it out, and he'll get a warrant, a requirement to a subpoena to appear in California. But everybody said, look, he did all this in Indiana. That's where you need to go do this. So what they should have done is he should have gone to Indiana and filed the warrants there and had Indiana cops. But instead, they filed them in California. And then he sent, and this is the part that mystified everybody. Now, Bolanos, the sheriff, has already been voted out of office, and he's a lame duck. He's out in January. So, he's out on vacation right now. No one can find him to get a comment out of him. But he sent 4, hold on. He sent 4 deputies. One of them a lieutenant, to go, and they went they flew them to Indiana, put them in hotels, covered their meals. They go down to the local police station or sheriff's department, tell them, hi, we're with you. And so a sheriff's deputy goes out with an Indiana sheriff's deputy goes out with them, and they searched the guy's place, and they took some files, and he thought they were there to get the car. They didn't touch the car. And the irony is the car's almost ready now, too. And they hauled the guy down to the local jail. They did not arrest him. They did not process him. They did not fingerprint him. Did not photograph him. They basically went down to get everything straightened out. Okay? So they gave the guy basically a subpoena. You have to appear in court in California. Okay, and then he went home. But they got access to all his emails, and they froze his bank account.
Well,
They came home with a couple of packets of documents that they had, and luckily for this guy, because this could have, he's already had to get a lawyer, so he's already out a bunch of money. But this is a guy who's like a preacher in a local church. He's an old one. Indiana makes Batmobiles. We are not dealing with Blofeld here, okay? And he's completely gobsmacked by what happened. Luckily, one thing that has expedited this nonsense is there are 2 things you can say that will invoke public attention: Godzilla and Batman. Okay.
Split it in there. We work it in there.
More to the point, the Batmobile. The minute the story on a replica Batmobile got out on the internet, it took off. It went viral. A news station in San Mateo caught wind of all this, and it was their most requested story. Steve Leto over at Leto's Law had an interesting observation, because he had the first video I watched on this, and he's also stunned by the level of you know what, I said I wouldn't get involved, so let me just say he's stunned by the decision making process. I'll leave it at that. And Fiberglass Freaks, thank you, Bill. Fiberglass Freaks. Now, just today, I think it happened, since it's Sunday, I guess it happened on Friday, a new story came out. The San Mateo District Attorney at first wouldn't comment. One of the underlings one of the junior lawyers was handling. She said, I can't comment. which really they can't. I think what it was, she realized, what mess has this outgoing sheriff gotten us into? How do we save face? The actual DA himself put out a video where he said that they've canceled his arraignment date, which is a big step in the right direction, because he was scheduled to fly out, I think, on the 19th of next month, or maybe this month, for an arraignment. They talked to a judge. They canceled that. I think very quietly they want to make this whole thing go away, so they're going to drop all the charges. And he did say this is a civil case. But he can't just drop the charge. He's got to have legal ground, so he's working on that now. And I think they're waiting for it to die down a little bit, and then they'll announce that they've dropped all charges, and then it'll just become a civil matter. This guy that, this real estate guy, magnate, who's the one who bought the Batmobile, he's a huge car guy, has a lot of cars. As you probably surmised by now, he is a man of substantial wealth. At first, he was going to make a big... He wanted to defend himself, and then his lawyer said, no, he's decided not to appear on camera. I think we can all see what's going on here. I'll let you go watch it yourself and see the videos about this guy yourself, but we all know the guy who's got a lot of expensive toys, and he wants to make sure you know he's got them. And that's all I have to say about that.
Well, I spoke to my buddy today who worked for Barris, who built some of the Batmobiles. And he said, first of all, it's a between the shop and it's between the guy who contracted.
Mm-hmm.
He said the shop, it has 100% correctness that the guy didn't pay. He went dark for 9 months. You moved the car to the back of the line because you're not getting paid to work on it.
Yep.
The thing he also said that was interesting is that this guy is authorized by DC and Warner Brothers.
Yes.
But he's not authorized by Fox and Greenway Productions.
Uh-huh.
Which my friend had issues because he was authorized by Warner Brothers and DC, and Greenway Productions and Fox came after him. And he had to get rights from them to be able to build and show the cars. So this could lead somewhere else because of this that's kind of ugly.
Possibly, unless he already has those permissions or those entities no longer exist, or they've lost rights, or they've lost rights, because that stuff does change depending on how many. I'm not a lawyer, but I think there's a time limit on some of that stuff. But anyway, and it may cause him to have to go get more rights from other people and pay more money, which he'll pass on, of course, to the customer. But just super short.
He hasn't made that many cars. He's only made about 24 cars.
Yeah, exactly. But just real quick, because some people were asking, I guess I came as a guy bought a replica Batmobile to be made for him. He ghosted the builder, so the builder pushed him to the back of the line. He got upset, went after the guy, and actually had sheriff's deputies from California go to Indiana to serve warrants, which they had no business doing. And
which is ridiculous.
It's beyond ridiculous. I think it's criminal.
Yeah.
And it's no wonder the sheriff's on the outs, got voted out.
The thing I saw today where they interviewed the DA was that when the sheriff comes back, they're going to have a full investigation as to how this happened.
As well, they should. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's we're talking about what we would have called officious use of office, and it's a form of corruption, and it's patently inexcusable.
The Joker is behind all this.
Ah.
The Joker, yes.
Joker laid an egg. The Batmobile lost a wheel. Joker got away. Hey.
and Bane.
And Bane. Are you not?
Axel Finero said that.
But anyway, so that's the story on that. But just to finish off, the other thing I was talking about was that Humbrol Paint says that they are going to go back to making enamels once they figure a way to get that Miko out of it and replace it with something else. But Snake Plissken would kick Batman's ass. Yeah, he probably would. Call me Snake. Snake Plissken versus Godzilla. But anyway,
we're going on about Batmobiles.
And God, All you need is for AMT or somebody that makes a model of the Batmobile to have all these companies. Yeah, you owe us money too. I mean,
Well, that'd be round two.
yeah, I tell you what, that's why we can't have nice things.
Yeah, it's true.
Anywho. Well, what else do you guys got before we go? We got just a couple of minutes left. We'll be wrapping up here shortly. And
Did you get my emails?
oh, that's what I'm sitting there going, something rattled around in the back of my feeble little brain. Here we go. Let's see. Here we go.
Well, we need honey there.
Okay. By the way, your picture's upside down. Save as.
She's scratching in her box.
Yeah. Stimulating my thought process. Thank you. Now, this is going to come in upside down, so give me a second to write it here. Okay. Okay. What? Wait a minute. Where is it? I told it to go right there.
Just look for the autopilot button, Max.
Tell you, hey, I don't fly on Airbus. Oh, hold on.
Ken, it's real tough when you got a Commodore 64 to manage all this.
Yeah, it is. Commodore 64, you one of them fancy boys. I got a trash 80. How many remember those, the old trash 80s? Okay. Rotate.
I got a Sinclair 1500.
Oh, yeah? Well, I got an Edsel. Okay.
Only a few people going to know what that is.
I got a TI-4.
A TI-4?
Yeah. You know, the one you slip the cartridges into?
Ha! I do. Oh, no, that's a PC Junior was like that. Hold on. Okay.
Remember the Atom? Yeah. Remember the Atom?
Yes.
Here we go. Guys, Steve picked this up for $2 today. There it is. It'll be on your screen in about 10 seconds. And you'll have to get a new decal sheet, of course. Nice thing about one like this is you have no guilt about building it. None of this, should I, shouldn't I? Just save the box. $2.
Coco 2? Never heard of that one.
What's mine's gas powered?
Herman says, Max, does your computer have a stick shaker and a function that shouts, pull up, pull up?
It's got a big lever on the side. I just drop a quarter and
It goes whoop,
I have to pedal to make it work. A Casio calculator. I had a TI. That's like the time we smuggled calculators into Brazil. Back in the 70s, man.
I remember when a calculator that had memory was like $159.
Oh, who remembers getting AOL or CompuServe? You had to pay by the minute. You get 80 minutes free, and then you have to pay.
Yep.
Where's those boiled? And the idea of doing something like this was like, this is like Star Trek, man. You're talking to 128 people or whatever we got on here.
All around the world.
All over the globe.
And they can see you.
Well, there's a downside to everything.
So this was a $2 flea market find.
I need to go to that flea market.
I happened to be walking by this booth, and buried in the back of the guy's table was this. And I looked, holy cow! And I had a rubber band holding it together. And took the rubber band off. I opened it up. I go, oh, there's parts in it. Okay. I said to the guy, how much do you want for this? And I'm waiting for him to hit me with a, stupid number. And he goes, how's $2 sound? And I was like, here you go. It was
done and done.
It was the lightning speed of $2 being handed off. And I said to him, you got any more of these? He goes, no, he said, I bought a lot of stuff, and this was in it. I said, was there anything else in there? He goes, yeah, this was pretty much it. I was like, thanks.
You tried.
Well, let me know you find any of these others in this little box. Well, now there's, you guys, some of you will recognize this box art. This is a Jack Linwood box art, and it's got one of Jack's famous cheats that Mike Mashat loves to talk about. And you'll notice,
kill the box.
You'll notice that the pilot is stepping into or out of the cockpit, but there's no ladder.
It's on the other side of the plane.
I think what you can't see is the crew chief off the side of the box who whisked it away while the guy was crawling his butt first out of the guy. And he's about to pull a Laurel and Hardy routine here.
Sure, that's not just the guy washing the windows?
In a flight helmet?
With a helmet in case he falls.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just go with that. I think I'm going to have to email that to Mike.
Yeah. I sent it to Mike, and he emailed me back, score.
are all, you said you inventoried the parts, they're all there?
No, it's missing 2 of the landing gear and the 3 hatches.
Well, you can stock styrene the hatches and put it on a stand, wheels up.
I can make that and put it up on a stick.
Still worth $2.
It's not often that you see pieces with the decals and parts painted before it's even put together.
Or you can put it wheels up on a field without the 3 hatches and label it, "The cornfield bomber ain't got nothing on me."
It's true.
For those who don't know, back in
the boneyard.
Yeah, back in the 60s, an F-106 pilot ejected, and after he went out, the airplane stabilized and then landed itself in a cornfield in Kansas. And when the police found it, the engine was still running. You never lived that one. By the way, that's the one that's on display in the Air Force Museum. Well, listen, guys. Yeah, it is. Guys, I have to run now. It's a little after. It's going on 9 o'clock, and I need to check on my patient, make sure she's okay.
Is it
There you go.
Time?
Huh?
Fast Sports explained it. It says the pilot's wearing a jetpack.
A hoverboard, man. He's using a hoverboard. Well, everybody.
B-58 pilots could levitate. Oh, I didn't know that.
No.
Well, guys, I'm gonna let this thing run. I want everybody to thank Steve and Ken for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Ken.
Oh, hey, I enjoyed this. I laughed my rear end off most of it.
And now I'm gonna hang up on the both of you here.
That's because we're model citizens, Max.
That's right. Model citizens. Say goodnight, Ken. Say goodnight, Steve.
Good night, Steve.
Good night, Ken.
Good night, guys. I thought they'd never leave. So anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. I want to thank everybody for joining me. Hope you had some fun here. Take care of yourselves. And as always, whoops, hit the button a little too soon. As always, model on.
I often do these late night builds on some old kit I've found, and my mind goes back to the shelves and stacks of a store that's not around. It was not far from my neighborhood. I just liked to look around, where I'd forget the glue and would then have to go back to Hobbytown. I remember many years ago, the first kit that I chose. Then every day, a new display as my stash steadily grows. The kits I make may one day break, and dust might fill my nose. But I still build, and I always will. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So I bid farewell to Hobbytown. I never more will see. But paint and glue are what I do, so it's eBay stores for me. Oh, I could have gotten all their stock, but I'm not one of those. They were almost free, but that's not me. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So come on, ye old glue troopers who can still build model kits. The kits are new, some need no glue, and others'll give you fits. When the paint's not dry, then you must try to leave it as it sits. If the kit is old, it can raise your soul when you have finished it. So let's bid farewell to the days of yore we never more will see. Grab your glue and get right back to that vintage old styrene. Oh, a Miss Aurora and monogram and and the old kits that we chose, but we still build, and we always will. We're all idiots, I suppose. I often do these late night builds on some old kit I've found, and my mind goes back to the shelves and stacks of a store that's not around. It was not far from my neighborhood. I just liked to look around, or I'd forget the glue and would then have to go back to Hobbytown. I remember many years ago the first kit that I chose. Then every day a new display as my stash steadily grows. The kits I make may one day break and dust might fill my nose, but I still build and I always will. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So I bid farewell to Hobbytown. I never more will see, but paint and glue are what I do, so it's eBay stores for me. Oh, I could have gotten all their stock, but I'm not one of those. They were almost free, but that's not me. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So come on, ye old glue troopers who can still build model kits. The kits are new, some need no glue, and others'll give you fits. When the paint's not dry, then you must try to leave it as it sits. If the kit is old, it can raise your soul when you have finished it. So let's bid farewell to the days of yore we never more will see. Grab your glue and get right back to that vintage old styrene. Oh, a Miss Aurora and monogram and the old kits that we chose, but we still build, and we always will. We're all idiots, I suppose. I often do these late night builds on some old kit I've found, and my mind goes back to the shelves and stacks of a store that's not around. It was not far from my neighborhood. I just liked to look around, or I'd forget the glue and would then have to go back to Hobbytown. I remember many years ago the first kit that I chose. Then every day a new display as my stash steadily grows. The kits I make may one day break and dust might fill my nose, but I still build and I always will. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So I bid farewell to Hobbytown. I never more will see, but paint and glue are what I do, so it's eBay stores for me. Oh, I could have gotten all their stock, but I'm not one of those. They were almost free, but that's not me. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So come on, ye old glue troopers who can still build model kits. The kits are new, some need no glue, and others'll give you fits. When the paint's not dry, then you must try to leave it as it sits. If the kit is old, it can raise your soul when you have finished it. So let's bid farewell to the days of yore we never more will see. Grab your glue and get right back to that vintage old styrene. Oh, a Miss Aurora and monogram and and the old kits that we chose. I often do these late night builds on some old